I hope you enjoy my history and lore video on the Tomb Kings. If you would like to view more videos like this in future, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel for weekly content. Arkhan the Black, the Lich King, Dark Lord of Nagash. Arkhan the Black was the first and most loyal of the evil Nagash's followers. He grew up with Nagash in the ancient city of Khemri and was the first person apart from Nagash to partake of the elixir which granted Nagash and his followers eternal life. Arkhan helped lead the coup which brought the arch-necromancer to power, and he was the first, after his lord, to imbibe the elixir of life. Arkhan was the most adept of Nagash's pupils in the study of dark sorcery, and he quickly rose to become the necromancer's trusted vizier and principal lieutenant. When the Priest Kings formed an alliance to attack Nagash, Arkhan was Nagash's principal lieutenant in many battles that followed. He led many armies and fought numerous battles against Nagash's enemies, and was never once defeated in open battle. In the end, however, the sheer numbers of the Priest King's armies proved too much for Nagash's forces, and they were forced to retreat to Khemri, where they were besieged. When Nagash's capital finally fell to the Priest King's armies, Arkhan led a suicidal counterattack which gave Nagash the opportunity to escape. Arkhan and his bodyguard fought to the last man, hopelessly outnumbered and surrounded on all sides. When the last of his bodyguard was slain, Arkhan fought on alone for over an hour, holding back the army of the Seven Kings through feats of martial prowess and powerful sorcery, standing atop a growing pile of bodies. Arkhan finally fell, not to a hero's sword, but to a single spear hurled by an unknown soldier. Arkhan stared in horror at the spear shaft protruding from his chest, knowing that it had pierced his heart. With his dying breath, he threatened that a terrible curse would befall any who touched his corpse, and with that, he slumped to the ground. Within seconds, dark flames had consumed Arkhan's flesh, leaving only but a blackened skeleton. Whilst the rest of Nagash's followers beheaded and burnt, none dared risk desecrating Arkhan's remains, and so they covered them under a cairn of stones inside along with those he had slain. He was the only foe they honoured in this way. The rest of Nagash's followers were beheaded and burnt, and their ashes scattered to their winds. For generations, Arkhan's body lay under this cairn of stones, long forgotten by all but Nagash. Nagash did not forget his most able lieutenant, or that he had died so he could escape. While Arkhan rested in his rough stone tomb, Nagash built a mighty undead empire and returned to finally defeat the Priest Kings and their followers. Once the Priest Kings were defeated, Nagash cast an immensely powerful necromantic spell which awoke all the dead warriors that lay in the Priest King's realm. When the spell was cast, Arkhan was reborn as the Lich King. With a mighty roar he hurled aside the stones of the cairn and stood once more, both less and more than he had been in life. Arkhan became the first of the creatures known as the 9 Dark Lords of Nagash. These fell beings were in ancient times the foremost of Nagash's captains and apprentices and the most feared hunters of his enemies, and still walk the world bringing despair and destruction to the living. When Nagash was defeated by the last surviving Priest King Al-Qadazar just hours after casting the great spell, Arkhan gathered a vast undead army from those creatures that had been reawakened by Nagash's spell. Determined to wreak revenge on all living creatures for the destruction of his lord and master, Arkhan turned south towards the nearest living opponents he could find. For generations, Arkhan and the undead host under his command battered the kingdoms of Araby, in what the Arabian chroniclers came to call the Wars of Death. For countless generations, Arkhan the Black vented his anger on the lands of the living, butchering the inhabitants of the world from the kingdoms of Araby in the west to the fledgling empire in the north. Arkhan and his army inhabited the desert wastes that surrounded the lands of Araby, uncaring of the sweltering heat and total lack of water that would have destroyed any living army. From here they would swoop on an unsuspecting Arabian city, destroy it and burn it to the ground, and disappear back to the desert from whence they had come. When Nagash was finally reborn, Arkhan turned his army about and marched north to rejoin him and resume his position as his chief lieutenant and second in command. From that day until this, Arkhan has remained Nagash's most able and trusted general, leading Nagash's undead legions against many opponents. However, Arkhan the Black retained his master's unquenchable thirst for dominion over the realms of Nehekhara above all else, and he finally returned to the land of the dead. From his cursed Black Tower, Arkhan has carved out a powerful realm. The other Tomb Kings tolerate Arkhan, for he is a powerful ally to those who can afford his price. Of all the rulers in the land of the dead, Arkhan's greatest rival remains Settra the Imperishable. The two have fought against each other a dozen times, and though Arkhan's army cannot rival the might of Settra's, neither can the King of Nehekhara overcome the Lich King's dark sorcery. Their battles thus end in stalemate, and only when Arkhan bows his head and utters false promises of fealty does Settra return satisfied to Khemri. Whilst Arkhan feigns servitude, he is secretly plotting for a way to hasten the inevitable return of Nagash. To this end, he has scoured the globe in search of the great necromancer's enchanted items, for a fraction of his evil will still resides within each. Arkhan the Black wields his master's own magical staff, plucked from the clutches of the vampire Mandragon, and with it he channels the winds of magic to his whim. However, Arkhan's most prized possession is the Liber Mortis, one of the 9 books of Nagash that holds the secrets to necromantic magic. One day Arkhan the Black will succeed in resurrecting his Dark Master, and on that day the Tomb King shall be destroyed, and the world shall drown in death.